You're tuned into the Growth Ceilings podcast, the show for builders, dreamers, and leaders ready to break limits and grow beyond what they thought possible.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us for another podcast. My name is Jim Lovelady. I am a professional EOS implementer. EOS is the Entrepreneurial Operating System. I am thrilled to be joined by one of my colleagues at EOS, Rafael Eljou. Rafael is also a professional EOS implementer, and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Jim. I appreciate it. It's an honor to be here.
So I'm going to ask the obvious question. Bring me up to speed what you're doing today and what brought you to the point of becoming an EOS implementer.
Oh, that's a good question. So let me go back. I think I've been an entrepreneur since I was 9 years old. My first business idea was to sell pencil erasers. One of my classmates asked me that. Well, these Snoopy Dog erasers are so cool. How much did you buy them? And I was going to say something like 5 cents. I still don't know when I'm going back to that moment. When I just turn around, I've heard myself saying 10 cents. And he said, cool, can I have 4? And I said, sure. So that was my first business idea. And a business emerged, and I've learned sales, marketing, competition. Soon some of my classmates started to do that, and litigation. Eventually we closed that business in 6 months because the school dean said, you shall not sell things in the school. Fast forward to the next 20 years of my life, all the way to the 30s. I studied civil engineering, construction management, started 3 more businesses, and did lots of ups and downs. Most of my businesses was, I'm going to jump off this cliff and build wings as I'm going down. Hopefully I won't die. Actually, I bankrupted one of those companies. The other company I sold with success. And the third one I came out because I was moving to the United States. When I came here, I studied MBA. And then really, by God's grace, I went to something completely different. Integrator and visionary is really EOS terminology, but for the sake of people who understand, is that I was the guy who wanted to be in a high altitude and just tell what needs to be done. And some people worked with me to do that. And then I became suddenly a person who needs to go very low down into the trenches and try to find out, okay, what am I going to do? Very painful years, but I've been able to have both sides of my head kind of working together. So half of my brain now is a visionary, the other half more like an integrator. I can work on many deep details, and I can think about what needs to be done in a high level. And then getting back to your question, 4 years ago, I started an IT system implementation company, helping clients to really become digitally savvy, make sure that they are using the latest technologies. And 2 years ago, one of my clients told me that I need to read a book. It's called Traction. And I told them, listen, pal, I'm really busy. Leave me alone. He said, no, we're going to read it. And he was a good friend of mine. So I decided, okay, I'm going to read it. And I started to read the book. I'm mostly self-taught person, started to get to the first part, one of the key components, vision. And I asked myself, where do I want to go 10 years from now? I have no idea. What are my core values? How do I know? And I realized that I've never hired, fired, accepted, rejected people based on any core value. It was just who are around me and how can I hire? Never thought, what am I going to do like 10 years from now? So I spent some time to really ask that question. Do I want to be an IT system implementation? And I realized the answer is no. I found it's not exactly what that will give me a passion 10 years from now. And what was my passion? To become a private equity. But how can you create an IT company to a private equity? It's like a huge shift. But really going through EOS, starting asking all those questions and spending time through 6 months, gave us a plan to become a business catalyst in 2 years and eventually become private equity. And then we defined a 7-step process for all the small, medium-sized businesses, starting from design, business design, then finding the capital. And then the third stage is operation. And that's exactly where EOS comes nicely and is squarely in the middle. An operating system that majority of businesses are lacking or missing, or they even don't know that exists. And we find out that we can really help them and create a unified experience for all of those. So I realized that I need that. And I really loved EOS and I loved coaching. And I felt that means I need to become an EOS implementer. And I took another 3 months just thinking about it. Is that really what I want? Because it's a big commitment. It's not serious. You and I know that. There's a lot of work around it. We get together every week. I've never seen such a big community of dedicated people who are supporting each other and also supporting clients. And we are all looking for the success of our clients. And eventually I said, you know what? I need to do that. My company name, it's the second part of actually my family name. And Jew in Farsi means seeking. So you're always seeking. And that's actually our company motto as well. We say seeking above. We are always looking for the next stage.
Fantastic. So you mentioned a lot of key elements and what brought you to this point. You talked about vision and core values, and I'm just going to jump to what's called the vision traction organizer that we teach as implementers. In my own experience, we tried to self-implement. I was handed the book Traction by a CEO that I worked for. I had come to the business as a chief revenue officer. My very first assignment was to read Traction and to interpret what it was teaching us. We had all the wrong people in the wrong seats. And as we went through our own self-implementation, we got it all wrong. It was chaotic. Once we hired an implementer and understood the interaction of the foundational tools of EOS and started to follow as it was intended and apply some discipline and accountability, it all came together. Quite frankly, I was dismissive of the vision traction organizer. I thought it was a simple sheet. It's 11 by 17 sheet of paper. It's got a lot of it's got 8 key questions on there that you take a leadership team and the owner and founder of the business through that in defining all those key answers, whether it be core values, as you mentioned, your core focus, your 10-year vision, your marketing strategy, your 3-year picture, your 1-year plan, your rocks, and essentially your issues. And I know I'm skipping through that very quickly. For our audience, we can get more into detail, but the Vision Traction Organizer becomes a playbook of sorts. And once I understood that, once we as a team assembled that, it clicked for me, and that's what brought me to where I am now. You mentioned also the word abundance, and I'm going to jump on that for a moment. Yes, you and I, we put a lot of effort into our businesses in the business development and the teaching, the mastery of the EOS tools, and how we now teach, facilitate, and coach our clients, and certainly people we come in contact with, the elements of EOS. And we all have, I agree with you, we all have this help first attitude. There's an abundance of opportunity. And for anyone listening here to our conversation,
Yes.
whether it's Rafael or myself, we are happy to share our interactions with both prospects and customers, because it's important for our customers to feel A, EOS is right for them, B, either one of us or both of us are the right implementers to that customer, and C, ultimately, what date do they want to get started, right? And
Very
so
true.
it's part of my conversation when we conduct a 90-minute meeting, which is the first step in the EOS process. And so you've been doing this now. When did you become an EOS implementer? Was it earlier this year?
June of this year, yeah.
Fantastic.
I went to the May boot camp.
Yes. So you're like all of 5 months into this, right?
Yes. Very
How's it
fresh.
going?
So far, so good. I've noticed that I don't have the right set of clients for this. And I kind of knew that. I knew that I don't have a network, and I'm building that network. And part of that building the network is that you need to be in touch with a lot of people and really wearing that help first mentality. I remember in one of our calls, one of our colleagues said, make sure you don't have the commission breath in your mouth when you're talking with people. And that really took me like a couple of weeks to self searching and seeing that, oh, there are times that I'm not help first mentality. And I'm looking at this guy, and always in the back of my mind, I'm thinking that, can this guy be one of my clients? So it took me a couple of weeks, but I tried to completely disentangle that and really think about, I want to help you however I can. Because actually in my company, there are other ways that we help people, but really the help first mentality helped me to be different. And people understand it, Jim. It's very interesting. They realize if you are genuinely there and you're helping and you say, are you done? Good. I'm leaving. So you don't want anything from me? No, I'm just trying to help you. And then we can build the trust and they will come. Because if you are that type of person, they always need more help.
I come from a sales and marketing background, and I was a huge believer, and still am, in offering value. So in my approach, it was always to communicate, yes, I do this, I sell that, and here's the value that it provides. And by the way, here's some additional content or other things that I can either offer or do for you that would be either aside from my core focus of what I'm selling or what I'm doing. Here's something that would complement or educate or help you in some way. And I can go back on a bunch of stories in my career where exactly the abundance mindset, the help first attitude always helped me to advance the sale and win. And, ultimately, yeah, we have an abundance mindset, but we also want to win and we want to earn the opportunity. And that's important. So while helping first is really our motto and what we live by, it does result in earning the opportunity. And it's been great
Right.
throughout my career. And when I got to EOS, experiencing it firsthand with a group of people like you and all of our colleagues who today make up the almost 900 implementers, it's a fantastic group, one we can lean on and share insights. We can solve issues. We can get real experience, not theory, but real experience from our colleagues, and we benefit. And that benefit now translates to what we share with our prospects and clients. So you've been doing this 5 months, and you kind of shared where you kind of have gone and what you've been going through. Any other challenges that are coming up for you at this point as a new implementer?
I think the challenge is mostly helping others to see the same value. Especially, I give you some ideas, especially for people that might think EOS is not right for them, like private equity, because I'm living in the Bay Area and there are lots of VCs and private equities. And these guys, VCs are a little bit different because VCs are with these startups through seed round A, B, C. But really, when they get beyond the A and they go to the round B and C, that's where all those issues are happening because you have most probably these founders that they are expert in building the tool, building the software, building the service, but they might not have been experts in really developing a company. And that's the point that these are struggling, and EOS can fit really nicely in their ecosystem. Especially in the Bay Area, there are not even that many of us. There are less than 15 EOS implementers. So not a challenge, but there is a lot of opportunity to educate the industry, especially the tech industry, that EOS can be a great benefit for everyone. And the more you have these in your portfolio of companies, they are all talking the same language. Like you would love to be a private equity that have 40 companies that all 40 of them run and managed by EOS. So you know exactly what is happening on each one of these. And you don't need to talk with 40 different CEOs, 40 different language, 40 different operating system or no operating system. You all talk the same language. And that's the next biggest opportunity, I think, for us as an EOS implementer and for the whole industry.
Well, I share with you, a partner of mine thinks I'm sitting on a gold mine, but as I got to know you and where you're located, I'm glad you brought this up. I believe you are sitting on a gold mine,
Thank you, sir.
being there on the West Coast and in the market that you're in the Bay Area. And my prior life in sales and marketing was a lot of early stage companies that came out of San Francisco and the Bay Area. And I've spent a lot of time there, both as an employee and then, of course, selling to companies in that area. And so you talked about the distinction between, I'll say, venture capital and private equity, because they are distinctively different, right?
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. So VCs are dealing with startups, but equity is dealing with small, medium-sized businesses, mostly medium-sized businesses. And they have a different business model and different goals.
Give me your perspective. I believe that as EOS goes, we're sitting on the early stages of recognizing how a business, the value of a business will increase by as much as X on a ratio paid against EBITDA. So that's the
Correct.
private equity crowd, right? That's where,
Correct.
they see a leadership team, an ownership, cohesive, all operating on a single operating system. And really,
Correct.
a well-oiled machine, when you think about it, they master the foundational tools of EOS. And in some due diligence where now that leadership team is asked to present to potential private equity buyers, they are going to look at that and it's going to distinguish that business right away. And I
Correct.
know that I've heard, I don't know how valid it is, within EOS, you hear we add as much as X on that ratio, which is significant when you think about it. And as you start to approach multi-million dollar, 8-figure, 9-figure deals, X can be huge to
Can
the
be
bottom
huge.
line.
Yeah. Correct.
And then that's not even giving any credit to the impact it has on the well-being of the business, the health of the business, right? When EOS is applied and it is shared and it's learned and it's mastered by all the leadership team, all the functional areas of a business, it's transformational. And it puts you on a path of success. And, for me personally, I wish I would have had EOS going back 10, 15, 20, 25 years. I
And me
entered
on that.
into email marketing back in the year 2000, working for a company in San Mateo, California. And I wish we would have had the structure and the accountabilities that come along with tools that are taught through EOS. I think it would have transformed our business. It would have put me on a different trajectory as a sales and marketing leader. I went on to work for multiple Bay Area companies along the way. And we always had clusters of people that were hired based on their prior experience. The owners had the best of intents, or the leadership had the best of intents to find the right people, but they didn't really subscribe to core values, for example, and how to
Correct.
apply those in defining who do you really want on your team? Who's going to match up to your core values and present an environment that's going to now build on and create a larger, healthier team with those core values. I know I've got a client in Chicago this past summer who came back to me after we went through teaching core values and defining their VTO. They came back to me, they made a hire of an office manager, and they applied the core values in their questions as they applied them in the interview process. And they found the right person. They were thrilled. And you got to believe that probably saved them all sorts of time and money, and probably helps them to now build the business going forward based on that one single hire. And it was gratifying as an implementer to hear that feedback.
I totally agree. And I think it's not an exaggeration to say that if there's one thing you're going to implement, just implement this core values. Because many days and nights when you're going through tough times and long hours, you're going to be challenged, you yourself, your team members, and the whole, that why are we doing this specific action right now? And I give you an example. I had that discussion with one of my team members in June that I was trying to help him to go and read and learn in specific software A to Z. And he was thinking about, well, I like to build a project, but as I'm facing a challenge, I would like to go and learn. And we have this core value that we are masters of our craft. That's one of our core values. And we had that discussion that, listen, if we want to be master of our craft, we cannot just go and learn something based on the necessities. We need to know the ins and outs of that tool, A to Z. So there's nothing that we are not aware because we've never asked the question. And some of these core values have different cost implications, different revenue implications. But if you really believe it, then make sure that you will live and breathe and do everything in your companies based on those. All decisions should go through the lens of core values and comes out. And that makes the difference between, think about like Apple and Google, two different companies. They are kind of in the same business, but the way that they are dealing with their products, one is obsessed with putting the final product in front of you. The other one is obsessed with repetition and making sure that we will put something and you do iteration. If it's buggy, that's okay. It will come back to us. Both of them are successful, but very different. Going back to the core values, I think it's absolutely a necessity. And most companies, they don't even think about it. They think core values are good for enterprises, not for small, medium-sized businesses, or at least it was with me.
Great point, great example, because I've worked for both public and privately held businesses, large and small. And I've been part of environments where on the walls, you see the words integrity, communication, honesty, quality, and people walk by them all day long and have no idea how they're applied, or they're buried in some kind of annual report or quarterly report by the business. And, it's just hot air that nobody pays attention to. And when you actually apply them for who you hire, how you evaluate, who you fire, how you reward people. And actually, in my EOS experience as a customer, we almost gamified our values, our core values. We put them on playing cards, trading cards. And as people were awarded a card, if you got the full hand of cards, you got a bonus on top of that. And it was a lot of fun, and people paid attention and understood this is how we're going to build our company. These are the kinds of people who subscribe to these core values. This is how we're going to build our business. And it's so fundamental, and it sounds so simple, yet very few companies I come across really understand how to really employ that.
That's very true. That's very true. We
So
all think it's a waste of time. We need to to work on the product. Let's just focus on the finances. Let's just think
Right.
about account receivable.
Exactly that. And that's why I was dismissive the first time I was introduced to a VTO or the vision traction organizer. I looked, I'm like, I can just go by the wall and just write down these words real quick, right? And nobody would have any idea of their definition or application. And when you actually go through a people analyzer where we put together a matrix with everybody on the leadership team, and now we evaluate each other and we look at those core values and we go plus, plus, minus, or minus, and we are open and honest with each other. It reveals a lot of things very quickly. And then we apply gets it, wants it, has capacity to do it. We refer to that as GWC. When you couple the values and GWC on the same matrix and you apply the measurement of either a plus, minus, or minus, and you define ahead of time what you're willing to accept. And what I say to a lot of leadership teams and owners, I'll say, what are you willing to pay for? This leadership team is probably your biggest expense as it relates to overhead. What are you willing to pay for? And for me, as a chief revenue officer, management of P&Ls and budgets and all the rest, I always had to have a number in my head of what I was going to spend to get to the result that we desired. And I always looked at my team, where am I spending my money? And the best thing I learned was identifying those core values and do I have the right people in the right seats? And it's been, if I go back in my career, there's so many instances where we didn't have the right people. I hired the wrong people. And perhaps I was the wrong person in a seat. I was the wrong person in the right seat. And, you got to have that connection, that fit. And you're doing a disservice both to yourself and to the employee if that's not clear.
Correct.
And as I shared the one win with the one client in Chicago, for them, that clarity and that excitement around, hey, we finally got it right. And now they're on their way and they believe in it. They are repeating that same effort, that same process for other hires, and it's extending to all parts of their business. And it's going to transform the company. So it works. And when you see the intersection of accountability charts, scorecards, level 10 meetings, how we solve issues, how we document our processes, how we document our VTO, the Vision Traction Organizer, how we use that as a playbook, how we share that with the organization so everybody understands who you are, where you're going, how you're going to get there. They understand the discipline, the accountability to that. They understand their role, their responsibility. People feel like their contribution means something. They understand why their contribution is asked of them. It's clear to them day one what their responsibility is, what their expected output is. And I know I'm perhaps not using exact language of EOS. However, for me, both as a customer now and on the other side of the equation as an implementer, this works with the companies I work with, and it's a lot of fun to do.
I totally agree. And you talked about all of these beautiful parts of EOS, and I highly encourage people to just grab the book of Traction and start to read it. Because there's a very distinct difference between Traction and, for example, Harvard Business Review or
Yes.
any other articles. You read these articles, each one of them are like arrows pointing somewhere. But if you
Yes.
read like 20 of these, many of these arrows are pointing to different directions, or you might be lost. Where am I exactly going as a leader? The beauty of EOS is that when I first read it as a system designer, I could easily understand that this is a system. A system is a group of interrelated activities that produces the same result again and again and again. So as a leader, I'm not in the process of getting what is the next shiny things every week or every month to come and bring it and add it to my business. You have just one coherent system that you know where it does it start and where does it end, what does it cover and what it doesn't cover, and you will implement that. Once you have that, then you can add other branches because EOS is an operating system. We don't talk about go-to-market, for example. You should have that on the other side. We have a place to document it, but we are not really go-to-market solution. And then once you have that, you are sure that your company will produce the same result, and you can add a little bit more in side steps to that. But don't spend too much time always searching for what is the latest article in management or strategy. You will spend a lot of time learning so many things that most probably very little you will implement.
What you just shared is brilliant. You just uncovered what I think limits a lot of companies, a lot of owners, a lot of entrepreneurs. They either hire or inherit people. They think they got the right people. They like the people. They use their best judgment without really the proper guidance. And what they get, and you use the term arrows. You were using Harvard Business Review as a really good example. I am an aggregation. I'm a compilation of all the arrows that I've picked up in my own personal journey, right? You are a compilation, an aggregation of all the arrows that you picked up.
Very
And then
true.
the third person, fourth person on the leadership team, whatever number of people it is on the leadership team, they're also made up of their own arrows along the way. And what happens is we get into a room, and like you just said, and if I could map this out, you'd have all these arrows pointing in all these different directions. They're well intended, they're great anecdotally, but they don't really connect a system of tools that have been proven over the years and time and again by successful companies. It's not an operating system. And that's what EOS represents. It's the entrepreneurial operating system. And it's a system of simple tools, time tested, great, simple concepts that help you get unstuck. They help you to get clarity, to generate traction within your organization. And you said it so well. I love that whole metaphor that you use with the arrows, because I think it's exactly how we're made up. And you and I get into a room as business leaders. Let's say you're the head of finance and I'm the head of sales, and we got the best of intentions. We just come from a different pack of arrows, right? And
Correct.
all of a sudden we're expected to like aim in the same direction. I'm using the arrow, right? We're supposed to
Yeah, yeah,
aim in the same direction, but invariably the arrows are going all sorts of different ways. And
exactly.
nobody understands that. So either we miscommunicate, we misunderstand each other, or we don't speak to each other and we do what we can to get away from each other. And that's not a healthy team. And that's not
Exactly.
cohesiveness. And that's not open and honest. And that's what you and I teach.
Exactly. That healthy part you mentioned, when I was talking to people, I was thinking maybe the healthy is a little bit cheesy. That was like a voice inside of me. You will be amazed how many times people say, okay, vision traction, yeah, we got it. And when you're talking about healthy, they suddenly feel, yes, that's the missing part in all of my previous experiences. We've never been healthy. We were always playing politics. We were always just showing something like silver plating. I was working with a leader who were always talking about his team as he is talking about a group of like football players that he is just narrating the story. Like everything is always perfect and we are all good. And we all know that there are issues, right? We don't want a leadership team who are like that. And you and I, we always talk about the leadership team that if you guys want us to work with you, you need to be open, honest, and vulnerable. And if you are willing to really accept these three words, the way the dynamics that we are working is very different. As a salesperson, you can go and sit to your finance and say, man, I don't understand numbers. Can you just help me understand it? The finance guy might be bad in sales. I mean, he's good with numbers, right? Tell me how you do and how can we support you instead of I'm just looking at my numbers. I'm just looking at sales. I don't want to listen to you. You don't want to listen to me. Really getting together as part of a team. I usually use this analogy for other clients that think of your company as a boat in the middle of an ocean. It's the same story of ours. If we all row in different directions, we never go to the same thing. It doesn't matter how big you are, 5 or 5,000 people. It doesn't go anywhere. And guess what? We are always sitting in the middle of this ocean, tossed around here and there by the next wave. But if we want to go to that place, if we want to go exactly from point A to point B, then we all need to be aligned.
I will add to what you just shared. I've been part actually of a couple of focus days where it feels like, and that's the second step in the EOS process. The focus day is the first day we get into a session room and we start to do the work. And it felt like, and this has happened a couple of times actually for me, it felt like it was the first time that the team that I'm working with actually met each other. They've been working together for years, but it's the first time they learned what each other is responsible for, what each other does. And it really helped to define and clarify and really undo some of the miscommunication,
Yeah.
some of the hurt feelings, all of that. Powerful. Once it's okay to be open and honest with each other, things take off from there. It's uncanny how that has happened. It happened to me personally in a prior life where we got into our own focus day, and I was a customer. I say customer, I was a chief revenue officer, and we had employed an implementer. And it was like the first time we were meeting each other. And then I've had clients, same exact thing. And so it's a very powerful experience. And there's a lot of things that can be easily dismissed. And I've said that a couple times in this conversation. And so core values, oh, we got those documented on our wall. Everybody should know what those are. No, don't be dismissive. Oh, this sheet of paper, I can fill that out in a weekend. No. This takes collaboration and real effort and real clarity amongst the entire leadership team. And once you understand that concept, now you're ready to do the work and really invest in your business. So I'd like to wrap up this conversation with you. It's been fantastic. What can I do for you?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, one of the other things we do in my company, Jew, is that we help companies to understand that there are way more simpler tools out there right now these days, especially with the help of an AI. So if you ever find companies who are struggling with their softwares and tools, you can introduce them to us. We do a free audit. We help them to see if there are ways that their business can grow faster. And we would love to help because it comes exactly with the same thing. Remember Gino, who was saying that we are obsessed with customer success. We try to do exact same thing. We try to be obsessed with customer success. And very thank you for the honor to be in the podcast. It was great talking to you.
You are fascinating, and I really enjoyed our conversation together. I think who's ever listening to our conversation is going to get a lot out of this and discover the human side of EOS implementation and hear both your story and some of what I've shared, and hopefully be intrigued by this to the point where whether they're reading Traction or Get a Grip or Rocket Fuel or any number of the other EOS library, and inquire about what these tools can do for their business. I will say at large, consider both you and I as resources. And if you're interested, please reach out. Rafael, it's been a pleasure speaking with you today. I want to thank our audience for listening in. My name is Jim Lovelady. Both Rafael and I are both professional EOS implementers. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you, Rafael, and I wish you the best.
You've been watching the Growth Ceilings podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who's ready to grow.